Thank you very much, Josh. Now, you mentioned it. That quals weather was absolutely terrible. We had rain, we had snow, and we had wind. And because of that, we see more than a few teams that are rather talented in the field lower down in the qualifications. I'm talking about Beta, I'm talking about 3PH, and I'm talking about Bears. So talking to a bunch of the teams before the race, I'd expect those teams to get very aggressive early on and try and push for that lead lap within the first few laps. But today, the weather is absolutely beautiful. We're hitting 60 degrees outside, partly cloudy, but one thing to note, we've got about 10-mile-per-hour winds coming in from the east, which is something the riders aren't fully adjusted to because most of their practices, they're expecting that wind to come in from the west. So that'll be something to watch throughout the rest of this race. Back to you, Josh. Thanks, guys. I'm here with Nick Torrance from the 2015 race. And just tell me a little bit about what you look back on and your memories as a Little 5 rider.
Well, Little 5 was something I put my whole college experience and my whole heart and soul into while I was here. It was 4 years, of training and sacrifices and dedication, and like all leading up to, the last race in my senior year. So, it was just a great time, great experience, made a lot of great friends.
Now, what does it mean to be back here supporting your team as an alumni?
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's a little bit less stressful, I'll say, obviously I'd love to be on the track competing still, but it's nice to be able to come back. Little 5 is a special time for Bloomington and, just IU campus in general. So it's great to be able to come back and support in a different way.
Now, you look at this team this year, and they've got a bunch of competitive riders. They're part of the favorites here. What are your expectations for the race?
Oh, I mean, anything less than a win, I think, would be a disappointment. They looked great. We're in white for a reason. They had a great spring. They're fit. They're ready to go. They're dialed in.
All right, perfect. Thanks a lot. Best of luck.
Yeah,
Back to you guys.
And for more on Blackie Bulls, we send down to Eddie Cotton, who's with Ryan Knapp.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with Coach Ryan Knapp. Now, not only are you the coach of Blackie Bulls, but you're the coach of Theta Cycling. And yesterday, you guys pulled out the win. Can you just tell me a little bit about that unique race yesterday?
Yeah, it was a slow one, honestly, and a little bit almost boring for a while because everyone was just kind of in a Mexican standoff, just not really doing anything. And so we just had to kind of be content to sit around for a while. And so, yeah, we just hung out and kind of bided our time. And then, luckily Rachel Brown is a superstar and the girls set her up well and she was able to, seal the deal late.
Now, heading into this race, you're the defending champions. What are you telling your team, and what did you learn from last year?
Last year was a little bit unique in the way it ended up playing out. Teams don't get away solo all that often. And so it's just really a matter of taking what the bike race gives you. You can't, unless you have a very rare, super strong team of 4 that can just dominate from start to finish. It's kind of every year's strategy is going to vary a little bit, but we're just going to see how the other teams want to play their cards today. We have a rough idea of how we want to play ours, but obviously it's got to interface with everything else, so we'll see.
Now, something that's been talked about a lot is about how terrible qual's weather was, and a lot of teams that are pretty talented are going to try and get aggressive early. How do you think your team is going to approach that?
Yeah, we didn't have a very good day at quals. A lot of that was probably weather related. Quals doesn't mean too terribly much. It's obviously nice to qual in the front row and have a low stress start to the bike race, but it's normally not a deal breaker if you're not in that area. But yeah, I would expect the front row teams to hit the gas pretty early and just see, to make it safe and also to kind of potentially put pressure on those teams that may not have qualled very well. So we'll see, but I think it'll be a pretty classic start to the bike race. Everybody up front will, they have plenty of strong guys, so they'll go hard. But we're not too far out of that front bubble. We'll get up there and participate too. So.
And lastly, Theta won last year, BKB won last year, Theta won this year. If BKB wins today, what are we calling it?
I don't know. We're just trying to get a top 10 today.
Fair enough. Back to you guys.
Down to Eddie Cotton, who has more.
Thanks, Josh. Now, as we highlight various teams throughout this broadcast, one team that I think doesn't get highlighted enough is Kappa Sig. They actually qualified second, which is their second highest qualifications ever. The only time they did better than that, they held the pole and won the race back in the 70s. And we talked to them before the race about how important that qualification was to them. because obviously we know qualifications does not mean everything, but what it does is it gives you an opportunity to pick your pit. And for Kappa Sig, it was huge for them to get that second pit spot right behind Cutters, and they mentioned how being an experienced team, they know it's always important to be next to those other highly competitive teams. So they're right next to Cutters, pulled first, and they're going to be right nearby Black Key Bulls, so they could look at their strategies and adjust based on that. In addition, Jack Bosler talked to me about how important it is that they have those 3 returning riders, and their one rider who has never rid in Little 500 before, he's actually a BMX national champion. So they got plenty of skill on this team, so I'd watch out for them for the rest of the race. Back to you, Josh.
Being good.
Sigma Alpha Epsilon placed 3rd at qualifications this year and hope to be in contention for the trophy. For IU Sports Media, I'm Mary Kate Hamilton.
Talk about an incredible story. These Grahulik brothers are truly building a legacy here with SAE, and I actually talked to the oldest of the family, Andrew Grahulik, prior to the race about what advice you give to both of these brothers, because this is the first time you have to provide advice for both brothers. And he told me, for Rob, it's real simple. Eat laps, stay focused, and get Joe where he needs to be to win us this race. Don't let veterans bully you, and when you're in the pack, act like you're 6'4", and when you're at the front of the race, act like you're 5'4". His advice for his brother Joe, just wait for your team to get you in place and win this thing in that final sprint. And that's what you got to say to the guy who's number 1 in ITTs and the fastest in the field. In addition, he mentioned how his 2016 team really set the groundwork for what this team is ready to do as they are trying to do something really special with SAE. Back to you guys.
It's not a great facility we have here, but it's a basement, it's a place to train. We bring our TV in, watch races, listen to music, and in the end, it's not about how much funding you have, it's about how much you train. And that's what determines the winner.
And Forrest, really an underdog story, and they're going to really have to embrace that mentality here in the race. As we saw earlier, a chain actually fell off of their bike, and they had to replace that bike. We saw Hank Duncan making that exchange just a few laps ago. And I talked to the mechanic for Forrest and a few of their guys, and they mentioned that we are a great group of guys. We believe in ourselves, and this is still our year. So they're looking to get back to that lead pack and fight back with that underdog mentality. Back to you guys.
Cotton for more.
Thanks, guys. Now, I actually just had a little conversation with the bike mechanics over at BKB, and they mentioned that that dust might be just more of a visual thing. It really isn't having too much of an impact. They actually showed me more than a few bikes that look pretty clean. He seemed pretty upset about it. He would have loved some nasty stuff to clean up and more of a chaotic race here around turn 1, but he said the track is absolutely riding incredibly, and we're on an incredibly fast pace here, so not too much of an impact coming from that dust.
Cotton was more on that last wreck.
Well, that wreck happened right in front of BKB's pit, so I made a little sprint over there and had a conversation with alumni Charlie Hammond about what he saw, and he pretty much just saw a bunch of congestion, an overlap of wheels, and I asked him about how that might impact the race moving forward, and he's actually glad, as a team that was not involved in that wreck, that looks like it'll be an opportunity now to kind of cut the lead group about in a third almost, and that's a huge opportunity for some of these teams that are going to try and break away. And I asked him, how would you handle a crash like that if you were involved in it? And pretty much it's his go-to line with BKB. You got to be all in now. You got to do everything you can to exchange your bike, get back on the bike, and push to get back in that lead lap, and that's what they're trying to do. Back to you guys.
Who has a report on the field?
Hi, I'm here with Eric Andrews here from Beta Cycling. What is your impressions of how this race has gone so far?
You know, it's surprisingly slow. It seems like there's a lot of teams really trying to conserve energy, expecting some fireworks later in the race. So right now we're just kind of hanging out and trying to keep it clean.
Now, we talked to you before the race about how you helped to establish this program. What went into that, and how valuable of an experience is this now?
It's pretty incredible sitting here looking at the guys behind me and looking at the guys on the track and all the guys who came before us. You know, we're really a values-driven program, and you know, when you set out to build something, you know, my big brother in the house created this team, and I've really tried to continue that value set and that passion, and you know, I think that has manifested itself in this team today.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much. Best of luck.
The stage with a very special guest.
Thank you very much, Josh. I'm here with Dave Blaze, the Little 500 legend that Breaking Away is named after, and tell me just a little bit about your experience when you first saw the film.
Well, I was very excited about the whole thing. In fact, I had heard that Steve Teschich had written a screenplay about me called Eagle of Naptown, and later found out that when he tried to get that produced, why the studio wanted him to make changes. And then later, he wrote another screenplay called Cutters, which had nothing to do with me or the Little 500 or biking, but anyway, he tried to get that off the ground, and they squashed that as well. So Peter Yates, who was the director, had suggested he combine the two scripts, and that's what he did. And that was accepted as the script for what became Breaking Away. So anyway, when Steve called me back in '78 and said, hey, we're making a movie down here, and we want your name to be the main character and all of that, and I said, sure. And anyway, I came down and then ended up being in the road race, and then they hired me to be the announcer for the Little 500 portion of it. And of course, to have something named after or based sort of on your own experiences, it was very flattering, and it was a wonderful experience for me. And I think the thing that's great about it is not so much that it was about a bike race, but it dealt with all the issues that youth have in growing up. So yeah, it was a delight to be a part of the whole thing.
And what does it mean to you to have that movie be a film that almost everyone before they get to Bloomington has to watch? I mean, I watched it last night.
Yeah, well, it's great. I mean, I'm happy that it was as popular as it was and is, and so sure, it's a great pleasure to know that I was part of something that gives so many other people pleasure.
Now, what do you personally remember about your biking experience here on campus?
Well, I mean, I started out as a nobody, and through hard work, I got up to a point where I was perceived to be a threat. And anyway, after having the ability or having the chance to race in the thing back in 1962 and to win the thing, which sort of revolutionized the race, because prior to that, the race was ridden in very short series of 6 laps, 4 laps, 2 laps, 8 laps, something like that. And I rode the first 40-some laps before exchanging, and with our success, and by having me ride as much as I did, it demonstrated that you could have success doing that. And what happens when you do that is packs form. So after that, that's when you started seeing packs out here at the race, and guys started training differently, and it's really made the race a lot more competitive and open to a lot of teams that maybe in the past would have never had a chance. So instead of being a threat to the race, it really saved it and made it even better.
Well, now you look at this fantastic race, and it's a fantastic event, and what keeps you coming back?
You know, it is for me, and it was a pathway of self-discovery. I didn't think much of myself before I got involved in this, but having suffered in preparation for this and having gone through this experience, it gave me, I gained in self-respect, which helped me to actually evolve into a more complete person. So for me, it was more than just a bike race. It was a life-saving experience. So of course I come back every year. It's like going back and being reborn a little bit.
That's perfect. That's beautiful. And thank you very much, Mr. Blaze.
You're most
Really appreciate
welcome.
it. Back to you guys.
Thank you. About Jet Black.
Thank you very much. Now, I actually spoke with a few of the members of Jet Black down there in the pit, and they talked about how they were able to recover so quickly after their early crash, and it really came down to the rest of the field easing up and giving them an opportunity, and they're just taking advantage of it. When you ask them about it, they're saying, we're pretty much just riding the race of our lives right now, riding our hearts out. And I asked them about the strategy moving forward. They're looking at Blackie Bull's strategy from last year, potentially trying to lap the field. But as we see right now, that's probably not going to work out. But they're ready for a sprint if they have to be. Back to you guys. Thanks, guys. I'm here with Charlie Hammond, BKB legend and defending champion. What's it like being back as a defending champ?
It feels good. It definitely, when you come back off of a race win, there's no like bittersweetness there. It's just sweetness. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to see my team in yellow, so it's good.
Now, you've been in the pits this entire race. What have you seen out of this race so far, and what do you think it's going to turn out to be?
Yeah, it's been a pretty interesting race. There's been a couple crashes. Jet Black was up like a half a lap. That was a little scary at one point, but I think it's all good now. We actually just popped a tire, which we really lucked out because it happened right in front of our pit. But if that would have happened on the backstretch, we would have probably lost a half lap. So it's been an interesting day. It seems like cleaner than I expected, especially with how dusty turn 1 is, but it's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be a sprint finish.
And then looking at Xavier, he's the second ITT rider. He's seemed to be a little bit rested, but now we see him out in the field. What have you seen out of him, and how confident are you in him?
I'm very confident. So this is actually his first set. He didn't enter the bike race until at lap 140 or something. He got dealt a little bit of having to catch back on after our flat, but I'm really confident in him. And he's been chill this whole time. Like, he's just vibing out, and I love it. I love to see it.
And lastly, how meaningful of an experience is it for you to now be almost like a coach for your guys?
Oh, it means so much to me, especially seeing these seniors kind of come into leadership roles and seeing Xavier grow up on the team, and they've just matured so well and really hold themselves with the utmost character. And that's what it really means for us to be BKBs, is like to be those nice people, even if we're the best team or the worst team.
Perfect. Thank you very much, man. Best of luck.
Yeah, thank you.
And Eddie Cotton, who has more.
Josh and I talked to some of the guys over at FiSci who are doing an incredible job so far in this race, and I just asked them about their strategy and what's going into this performance, and they said the big key, staying incognito. They pretty much don't want anyone to notice that they're doing well, which now is not going to work because everyone sees them at the top of the field, but that's really their strategy. They're trying to make sure people don't notice them when they're at the front of the pack so they can make those late moves when the pack slows down, and we'll see how aggressive they get as this race kind of reaches its end. Back to you, Josh.
Thank you very much, Eddie, as on SAE.
Thanks, Josh. I just talked with the guys at SAE, and they said they're going to probably make one more exchange before Joe finishes the race at the very end. They're not going to tell me who's going to come in the race, but they'll make that one last exchange and then hope Joe can finish them out. Back to you guys. Very much, Josh, and you guys really hit that one right on the nose, Sigep, going through that crash, but getting right back up and right in this competition. And what I asked about the strategy moving forward with that crash is they might look to a few more quicker exchanges, go for a few laps, make a change, go for a few laps and make a change. And when I asked about the race conditions and what they're seeing, they are not exactly a huge fan of what it's looking like. The temperatures have raised on the track, so it's more of a dry track that makes it feel almost like a dirt bike race, and that's going to be difficult for a lot of teams, and the key is going to be handling. Now, I asked them what their confidence level is in that handling, and they're feeling just fine, and they feel confident in their ability to adjust to the track and move forward. Back to you, Josh. Thank you very much, Josh. I had a little conversation with some of the alumni over at Beta, and they mentioned how this strategy they're utilizing right now is the exact same way they won this race back in 2013. Send out your best sprinter when, as by quote, everyone else in the race is kind of sleeping. They're sending out Jack McNamara. He's on the bike right now for Beta. And also what I just saw previous to that move was a little bit of an altercation, not physical, just a bit yelling back and forth between the judge and a mechanic who had to bring in a bike there. So things are getting a little testy here on the field. Back to you. Gentlemen, what does it mean to have won the Little 500?
Greg, you're the spokesman. It's wonderful. I'm happy. I'm happy to be here with my team. We worked hard and we're glad with the outcome. Happy to be here.
You put in all this work to get here. What does it mean to have had your work worth it?
We won with the guy with the torn meniscus, if that tells you anything. This guy put the fucking team on his back. Sorry, excuse my French. All of these guys, this isn't be in the position to win, and I did what I was supposed to do. We came out and we did our jobs. Anyone who doubted us, we're back. 13. That's 13.
What went into the thought process down that final sprint?
It was quite chaotic. We had to put our top guy on 20 laps to go because the race was getting dicey, with fragile, and we feared one more exchange would just put us off the back and unable to catch up. Noble guy in said, I got it from here, I'll do it, I'll put me in with 20 to go, which is really unheard of. And he rode the last 20 laps really patiently because there were a couple teams up the road. He was patient, and he found himself in pretty poor position there with 2 to go, and we're getting worried. But he found an opening, and he got clear track ahead of him, and he rode the sprint exactly how he said he was going to.
Now we heard Noble say it at the end of the race, we're back. What does it feel like to be back?
It's a great team. We've won 13 times. We've had a few years where we've been competitive, but nothing's better than a victory. It's to consolidate the alumni and the supporters. It's to keep everybody tight. It's really for us. We're back. Not that we left, but we're just really thrilled, obviously, for all the work these kids have done. and the belief they had in themselves is amazing.
Thank you very much, Coach. Congratulations.